Hello?
Hello, Miss Lauren.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, it is an absolutely beautiful day where I'm at. How about yourself?
Yeah, it was really nice here too.
So, we had such a great reaction from your last show with us, your last event with us, your last experience with us, I guess you could say, that we wanted definitely to have you back on. Donald's not going to be able to join us tonight, but you and I can chat if you want to.
Sure, no problem.
So, you and I have kept our back channel going, and we've spoke about several things over the last several days. We both of us, I'm sure, have kept up with what's going on with this latest murder sheet, all the stuff going on with it. What's your impression of what's going on? What are you taking from all this?
Well, my impression of that release is that it I don't really feel like it brings much new to the table other than, it confirms some of the things that were already being speculated or that had been going around the rumor mill as far as crime scene details and maybe the weapons that were used, which I don't really feel like those are important. We don't need to have to know those things to make other sense of stuff. Sorry, I don't really know how to address that as far as.
I got you. What? Go ahead.
What of substance came out of that? I don't really feel like anything. If anything, I feel like the search warrant was just a strategic thing done by some podcasters trying to stay relevant. But I don't mean to disparage anyone. I don't feel like it's useful for the public to know.
Well, again, you're out there or so from town and have worked there on and off throughout your life, and of course, your opinion as a local person living in that general area means a lot to me. Now, there were a couple. The biggest thing that stood out for me from that release was, you mentioned there were some crime scene things that kind of reaffirmed what we heard from those text messages, Erskine or whatever we had gotten earlier. Some of those kind of it looked like it was kind of in line with that. But the only thing that really stood out to me was those phone pings. That was kind of weird. I don't know what it means. What did you think of?
It's my understanding that those cell phone towers, and it's my experience that those cell phone towers, you could sit in the same place. For instance, the Indiana Packers cafeteria. I can speak from experience, and I could sit in the very same seat, and my cell phone would go between roaming and local, in network, just whatever direction the wind's blowing. So I don't know that the phone pings necessarily mean anything other than, he was in the vicinity of his home. I believe they mentioned 3 specific phone pings, and I know that they mentioned one was in the vicinity of where the girls were abducted, and 2 were near his residence, which all 3 of those all 3 of those pings then are near his residence because they weren't abducted far from his property.
Which means that he was where he was supposed to be at his house, right? So, there's nothing big about that.
Right, exactly.
Whenever we try to find my iPhone here, with a house full of kids and phones, it never finds it like that. And they turned off that little being able to ring, and there's no way to find it. I'm like you. That doesn't really mean a whole lot. So, like you said, other than, to get a few hits, I don't know what it did. Other than, let's see, I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was thinking, well, maybe it, reaffirmed a few things, but it really didn't tell us a lot. I think going back to what that Perry Freeman, I think it was, like if we're looking at it, it's already old. It's old news. It's gone. In fact, Ron Logan's been dead for 6 months. or whatever. So there you go.
Exactly. I don't think that anything that we're going to get as far as documents go, it's not going to be anything that is going to solve the case. I mean, we're talking 5 years ago. They found him suspicious, of course, because there were deceased bodies, victims of foul play, found on his land. And I mean, they've got to rule him out. I think that going in, if you want to go into the corruption part of it, I think there's a pretty good chance that, you know, they were hoping it would be him. I know that, it would be easy. And now, you know, he's passed away. He's deceased. He can't defend himself. He can't do anything to strike these allegations down. And I really don't think, from the chatter that I'm seeing online, that anybody really thinks that he is a rich guy.
I don't think
again,
so.
I think it's just really it's clickbait. I don't know. That's my opinion, though.
So let's move back closer to the area. This is kind of where I want to go. Last time we kind of got off in some weeds there for a little bit, but like you've actually worked at this Indiana Packers, and of course that's a large employer. You said, I think you mentioned it, maybe as many people working there as there are in Delphi, huh? Or Delphi?
Yes, anywhere between 2,000 to 3,500 employees.
That's crazy.
It's a very large facility.
Did you ever happen upon any of the cast of characters that have been put out there while you were there? Because I think some of them were there at some point in time.
There is one person who's become a particular YouTuber's person of interest, which I don't give a whole lot of credence to what that YouTuber says, but that I do remember working with closely. And I don't see that he would be a killer, but then nobody ever thinks that people that they know could be guilty of something like that. I do know that the drugs were just rampant in that plant. I mean, I saw supervisors giving methamphetamines to their subordinates in order to keep them working longer. I've seen, hand-to-hand transactions occur just walking down the hallway, going to break, like right out in the open. There's a lot of, it's a highly sexualized environment. I mean, you have supervisors sleeping with subordinates, and the supervisor just got transferred or switched shifts when it was found out. There was never any disciplinary action. It's just really seems like they'll hire anyone too. Criminal background is no problem. They don't do any type of criminal background check. They might ask now if you've had a violent offense or if you're a sex offender, but I don't believe they do anything to actually check that. And I know of a person whose brother is in law enforcement and he worked out there, and he's a violent, former violent sexual offender. So the screening process is definitely minimal.
See, it seems like that I read, and you may help me figure this out, you may not, I don't know, I'm not trying to put too much pressure on you, but it seemed like there was a huge expansion project going on right around the time that the Delphi murders occurred. Are you familiar with that, or like they were expanding the size of the facility or something, maybe?
They were actually building a warehouse facility, so a logistics center right across the road from the main plant, in a little business park. They built a warehouse, and then also they had expanded. I don't know if they had expanded to Frankfurt at that point, but if it wasn't, by then it was shortly thereafter. So they did have two large facilities being added.
My point is that anytime you have an expansion project, if you already have 2,000 employees, 3,000, what have you, then you have additional people coming to town for sure. I mean, there's construction workers and all kinds of stuff that come into town when you're doing stuff like that, I would guess. You think?
Yeah. So there would be, the contractors, the construction workers. You would have people like in the excavating and hauling, and pouring the foundation, stuff like that. You had cold storage people coming in. I know like Hanson Logistics, I think, was who handled the cold storage. So you had various different subcontractors, of course, and there's still various subcontractors that come in and out of there. They contract all their sanitation, their after-hours sanitation work out, like as far as cleaning the machines and sanitizing all the equipment every night. That's not owned by Indiana Packers. That's a separate company. You've got, of course, all the truck drivers coming in, bringing, I think 16,000 hogs a shift, I believe. So, carriers in and out all day with hogs. And then, of course, just within Indiana Packers itself, you've got some really, you've got to have mentally disturbed people working on the kill floor. I'm not familiar with that side. I worked on the cold side in quality assurance, but I know that people who work on the kill floor, they are now required to undergo psychological evaluations at like 6-month intervals, I believe, to just make sure that they're mentally sound. That came from an incident that occurred where a gentleman was in the headroom, which is where they remove the heads, and everybody else went to lunch. They called break, and he didn't stop. He just kept cutting heads. And then when he didn't have any more, he just kept cutting the air. And they had to actually, I believe, had the special response team come in and the sheriff's department and stuff. So this was a while, like many, many years ago. But as a result of that, Well, it's a very depressing place. I mean, you're surrounded by death and dying all day long. It's very,
Well, I've been exposed to some. Now, like the ones that I've been in Arkansas, it's basically chicken. So, and of course, in those rooms, if you go to the kill room where they're, it's called live hang here. But now that was pork. Is that what you're saying? Is that what that, or is it pork and beef or
just pork. They're one of the largest pork producers in the United States.
Can you imagine? I know you mentioned something. I don't know what you said in terms of what they were hauling out per day, but a lot of times you're seeing 110 trucks, 110 trucks. Probably with that place, probably more than that coming in and out of that thing. You got 3,000 people there. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's a lot of. Most of the ones that I'm dealing with are 1,000 employees. So that 2,000-3,000 people. That's a huge facility. Huge.
Yeah, I believe they had the capabilities to slaughter and process about 40,000 hogs a day.
Jesus, where do you even get that at? Because but that's what occurs up there though. This is the rural. Tell me, Delphi. It's north central Indiana. Is that kind of where it's at, or where's it at?
So Delphi is about 20 minutes north of West Lafayette, which is where Purdue University is, and then it's probably about 80 miles north of Indianapolis, which is Indiana's capital. Yeah.
And Lafayette and West Lafayette, the population there is how many people are in those areas?
Lafayette and West Lafayette, I honestly, I can't even guess at that, but I can tell you that there's 40,000 Purdue students a year. So probably, it's huge.
And then Indianapolis. I was looking at the other day. This is something that I thought about. We first started researching this. Is that the Carroll County is the population is the same size as the county I'm in, which is around 20,000 people. But our county is 3 times larger, and our state is twice as large, and we've got half the people. In other words, we have 3 million people in Arkansas, and in Indiana, which is basically 1/2 to 1/3 the size of Arkansas, there's 6 million people. So it's crowded in certain areas, and I guess Indianapolis and probably West Lafayette are probably there's a lot of people there, lots and lots of people, you know. So, okay, so to carry on, you know, you mentioned inside of this Indiana Packers plant, I've always heard that, you know, meth, you know, you kind of touched on this, but, you know, people working 12-hour shifts, 5, 6, 7 days a week. I mean, and you even mentioned it, that they were handing it out because you got to meet production. And, of course, that stuff, it changes people when you get off on that stuff. And there's so many stories that come out of that area about addiction and people that are just, I see these videos of people, and it's young people, and they're trashed out on drugs. I mean, what does drugs look like in that area? Is it like our area it's just still growing? We're still getting new people addicted here, but what about there?
Oh yeah, definitely. Indiana in general, but rural Indiana is they call it the meth capital of the United States. I think it had the second. Indiana in general had the second highest number of methamphetamine related arrests and offenses in the entire United States. So it's always been notorious for that. And I think that especially out in rural areas, I don't think there's as many people manufacturing it themselves because of the cartels now, but still in rural areas, with the barns and outbuildings and stuff like that, they have more opportunities to be able to, I guess, process it. When people were making a lot of methamphetamines locally, with the clandestine labs, they had, you know, more space, and so pretty much you have a meth lab, a cornfield, and a church, and then, you know, a house. Those are the 4 corners of Indiana. Like on one corner you have a meth lab, one corner you have a church, and so.
Well, here it's like that, but we also have on the 5th corner, we have a Mexican restaurant. So there you go.
Oh, yeah, not so much here, but yeah, that's good because I love tacos. I mean,
yeah, you can't go wrong with tacos, I'm gonna tell you. So
absolutely.
I go back. I'm about 50, and I remember growing up watching American Bandstand and watching John Cougar Mellencamp go across the stage singing This Time and the 97 crosses of 97 farms. So, I guess that, what does that look like? I mean, are people kind of, is that where you have to work? I mean, what's the opportunity for a young person coming up in that area, for a young man? Because I think that's probably what we're dealing with is,
there's really not a lot in rural places like Delphi, Flora, Monticello, which is in White County. But those smaller areas, you're going to be in manufacturing work or working on a farm or some sort of, I don't want to say unskilled labor, but more blue collar stuff, unless they commute, which I know a lot of people do. I can't remember the statistics, but I was reading that pretty much, just say half of people who live in Delphi either commute for their job or work in manufacturing on a farm, auto mechanic type jobs. So, and Indiana Packers is really the only major employer out there. Everything else would be in Lafayette, like different factories other than Indiana Packers. And you have another pork processor in Tyson Foods in Logansport, which is only about 20 minutes from Delphi. So a lot of meat packing plants.
Yeah. And I guess that's what the farms are doing now is they're not really growing crops. I guess they're growing animals to feed these facilities, or what do you think?
Well, there's still soybeans, corn, various crops. But the thing of it is it's not like it used to be. It's not hands-on as much. A lot of it, the farms are owned by corporations, and you've got the different irrigation machines and combines, stuff like that now that can pretty much do all the work. So
yeah. Well, and that like you said, that kind of puts a but with the drums, I can't even comprehend that people are still trying meth for the first time. I can't even comprehend that. I mean, I wonder what leads to someone doing that. I mean, any insight, just off the top of your cuff there? I mean, anything at all you could think of that leads to that? What is it?
Yeah, well, there was a young man that I worked with at Indiana Packers, and he seemed like a really good kid. He seemed like he had a good head on his shoulders, very intelligent, hardworking, not like 90% of the other people that worked out there. And he moved up quickly in the ranks there and went from being, just a backup leader to a leader, and pretty much running almost an entire department. And just because of all the demands on him and stress from his supervisor putting pressure on him, he started using. And it was just so sad to see him go from such a promising young man who probably could have, I don't know, been a software engineer or something like that. He was so intelligent. Seeing him just decline within a matter of months, losing basically, his life because he wanted to meet the demands of the company. So I do believe people are still trying it for the first time. But then I also believe that it's more likely than not that if somebody's working long term there, that they've probably done it, before they started working there.
Well, and you described a scenario a little bit ago about the screening process. Of course, what I do is staffing, and like I said, I work with all kinds of different companies from metal fabrication to the kill plants and such, because that's what's available. And you meet people, and of course, a lot of people just they make a mistake somewhere, and the next thing they know, they're kind of life doesn't provide you too many second chances whenever there's 1,000 people fighting for that one piece of pie. And you wind up, I've seen a lot of people wind up out there. Now, people can't overcome those obstacles and get a second chance. And that's what a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of people that hire people that have felony backgrounds are called second chance employers. But I don't know. Anyway, that's a complicated topic. So, but I guess that the point I was trying to make with asking questions about that place is that, that's been one of the theories that people have stuck to, is that maybe someone from there was involved in it. They were off work, they were a construction worker moving in, working on that expansion or something, But now there's a lot of other theories out there, and of course I don't know how you feel about talking about any of that tonight. What do you where are you at with things? I guess it's really what I'm trying to ask. Someone local. We don't really know who you are. You're just someone that's been in the area. You lived and worked there, around the area. Give me some kind of insight. What's going on? I don't get it. I'm trying to understand this thing, but I'm having a hard time with all this noise from these different directions coming in. And I'm like, just as a parent who's had a kid about that age that just graduated high school, I'm like, what in the hell is going on? What is this? Help me make sense of this.
Yeah. So I don't personally have what you would call a person of interest, because there's just so many options, so many people could fit the bill. I believe that, and this is what I've believed and what my research, I can't disprove it. I believe that, I don't want to offend anyone, but I think that there are people who are close to the girls, or at least one of the girls, that this person knows a lot more than what they've told investigators. This person has so many inconsistencies in their story that just don't make sense. And then there are other people in this person's family who have made themselves a target for retribution, for maybe drug-related drama. But I believe that somebody knows, and somebody closer to the girls than what we all are, what the mainstream is thinking, definitely either had involvement or would be able to say who did have involvement. And I just can't believe that the way that the public opinion is protecting some of these people that are close to the girls in the way that they are, because in 90% of cases it's somebody who is known well to them. And other murders, 90% of victims knew the perpetrator very well. So,
well, I'm going to say this. Whenever you and I first started talking about this, one of the things you said to me which stood out, which is that there's an alibi that's been held up by somebody somewhere, and it could fall down. And that's what they're looking for, some way to break that alibi or prove it or something, from what I got from what you were saying earlier,
Yes. So I don't think that when they're giving a press conference and they're asking for the public's help, I don't think they're really asking for, someone who's 500 miles away to call in a tip on somebody who looks like a sketch. And I think it's very pointed. Every single one of Doug Carter's speeches, every single word he said in any of those speeches has been written by an FBI profiler. They're very specific, and he only has so much time to say what he needs to say, the point that he needs to get across. I don't believe that he says anything just casually by accident. I think there are references in some of his speeches that he's given at pressers and in his interviews that if you're willing to change your perspective a little bit and really listen to what the man's saying beneath the words coming out of his mouth, kind of read between the lines or listen between the lines, I think it's pretty clear that he is appealing to this person who has alibied someone, but the alibi is not true. And I'm just wondering, with recent deaths, like I know that the Keegan Klein's father recently passed away. Maybe they're looking for something like that from someone who maybe a mother. And I'm not saying the Klein specifically. I'm saying maybe there's a mother who alibied her son, and she didn't want to say anything because not only does she not want to hurt her son, but her husband maybe forbid it. And I think they're just putting pressure. They're putting pressure on that person to come forward. And I think that maybe the second sketch is not what everyone thinks it is. It may have been a picture that someone used to create a profile that lured these girls to the bridge. But it may not actually be what the person will look like now, if that makes sense. Doug Carter said that if you
interesting, so like
put
a younger
the two
person
sketches next to each other, and then you put one on top of the other, and then drop it down somewhere in the middle, the killer standing behind it will look like something, a mix of the two. So
yeah. And that guy, I get good from him. I don't get bad from Doug Carter.
Absolutely not. No, I think he's a very sincere person, and also I think that he has found this corruption. He, in one of his speeches, he says something about certain members of law enforcement. I know he mentions Holman, Lesenby, Liggett, I believe, and I'm not sure who else, but he says that they have such gumption, and the way he says it doesn't sound like a compliment. You know, gumption can be used in two different contexts. You could say, like, someone has gumption, like get up and go, or someone, I can't believe the gall.
Yeah.
And
yes. Gumption. So. Maybe he's trying to insinuate they need to get some by saying that they have some. Like, he knows it's there for them. They just need to step up a little bit, you know. Or something.
I don't.
You know.
I don't know. I took it as, I can't believe they had the nerve to do this type thing.
I got you.
And I also noticed in one of his last interview, he says that there's going to be a successful outcome for Abby, Libby, Becky, Mike, Anna, and the community. And I think who he didn't mention is more important than who he did mention. If that makes sense. Yeah.
I had to think about that for a while. So, but now there's this thing can go on. I mean, there's so much to unpack with all this stuff all the time, as people do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I know it's kind of getting late your way. How would you like to fade off into this wonderful night? What words are you going to leave me with?
Well, what words? Let's see. I would say let's just see how this goes. Let's wait it out, but don't think that this is solved. That's probably the biggest mistake that I think could be made from the release of this Ron Logan thing is let's not consider this solved, not even close, and let's just keep doing what we're doing and try to find a resolution for this.
Hey, I also remember you talking about turn those stones over, turn this stone over, turn that stone over. Keep on keeping the word out on Abby and Libby and hopefully their parents, at least the people that Doug Carter mentioned. Lauren, thank you so much for spending time outside of the grid tonight.
All righty. Take care.
Thank you, ma'am. Goodbye. Bye.
Bye-bye.